Okay. So the basis of this class for the lab is what we do, how we do things is mostly we are doing it group discussion, and I'm gonna break you guys off into groups. You're gonna discuss about some topic, come up with answers, choose a person that is gonna speak to me, speak to the class, and read your answer. And if other students, if you have any questions, including me, we're gonna ask you, and we keep moving forward.
Was it?
Okay. So yes.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mute my microphone. But was it just me, or I mean, I think the internet is not that good. Is it just me, or it's, I don't know.
Can you repeat that? Are you breaking up, or is it just you, or what happened?
Is it just my internet has some problem? Like it sounds really unstable.
Yeah, it's really unstable. I know. The interaction for today is not stable. Yeah, I know. Let me do this. Let me go ahead and change my spot. Maybe that helps someone. One second, let me change my spot. Let me see if my laptop has enough. Yeah. Let me go ahead and change my spot. Maybe this helps. Put my stuff. Okay. Hopefully this helps. I have to get a new router for my lab. Okay. Let me know if this helps. If not, I can go to the lab. Okay, hopefully this helps. Let me know. Okay, so for the lab, what we are going to do today. So again, the lab is recorded. I haven't set up the website, but on your Canvas, you are going to have a website. On the dashboard, you're going to have a class for the lab. We are going to do things, and you are going to upload them for me to earn credit, and for me to make sure that you're on the right track. Again, by attending and doing the work, you earn half a credit, and it becomes really handy because if you needed a grade, let's say from C to, it helps you to get C plus or even B minus. It's 4.5 points. So I would highly recommend you guys to attend, and it really helps. And we're going to go over the lecture material. It's a good time to ask me questions. And when we get close to the tests, I will try to go over some of the lecture material and help you guys out in that fashion. Okay. So labs are we have two sections in the lab. The first section of the class, it's going to be the classroom. We're going to go over the terminology. We're going to do some exercises together as a group. And the second half of the class is the computer lab. This is where we usually do SPSS coding, and we are going to cover that. And you guys can ask me questions, and we're going to go over it together. And then I'll leave you guys on your own for a little, and you come up with answers, and you have to submit it, the screenshot of it. And and we're gonna go over them together. So don't be scared off, because everything that we are going through, I'm going to teach you guys. We are going to cover it one by one. So, there's nothing out there that you don't know, that I expect you guys to know. So we are going to cover every little details. Okay. Did my connection got better? Okay, cool. Perfect. So for the lab one, for today, I'm hoping that you guys caught up with the readings that was assigned for today, for the ER book, chapter 1, evaluating research, and you've done the exercises that was asked, and we are gonna go ahead and cover that. We are gonna discuss psychologists, what is psychology about, scientists, the difference between scientists and psychology. Is there any differences? Or what every field is dependent upon. We are going to talk about experiences in research, and talk about a little about research, and doing the exercises that was assigned for you guys to do. So usually the phenomenon between psychologists and scientists is that they are looked at as two different things. Psychologists is often being looked at as people who are in mental health profession. They are, that we assume that they are really caring, really easy to talk to, they're really warm. And scientists are these people with white lab coats, and they are mostly awkward. They don't have any social skills, or and things like that. These are like some sort of stereotypes that they are not entirely correct. Psychologists, we have a wide variety of field of psychologists. One of the field of psychologists is that we are involved in UCI, and is mostly research. And we are doing the research. This department is doing the research about all kinds of stuff. We have psychology of language, we have psychology of abnormal psychology, which covers abnormal behavior. And we are in the class, it's one of the really cool classes that I took, abnormal psychology, that covers depression, covers schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and their characteristics, their behavior, how we treat them, and it's really interesting. And then we have there are research in the UCI that is done with for eye vision, for eyes, for hearing, which I'm involved, and every kind of thing. So psychology is not really limited to mental health. And the science, we have all kinds of science. So psychology is under science field, and for the science we have all kinds, for chemistry, biology, and physics, geology, all this different fields. Okay, so let's move on. And if you read the chapter 1, this it covers all this in much more detail. Okay, so I'm going to divide you guys into groups. Please don't be shy. It really works if you guys share and talk to each other. I don't want you guys to be shy, because there's no point. We are all friends, and it really helps to move along this class, this section, if you guys share with each other what you think. If you have any question, ask me, ask each other. So let's make this class a little fun for you guys, because we are going to be here for next hour. So I'm going to divide you guys into groups, and what I want you guys to do, come up with a psychologist name, famous psychologist name, not like Dr. Phil and Dr. Ruth and stuff like that, not pop psychologists, but psychologists, famous psychologists, not necessarily famous, with psychologist name, people who are considered psychologists, and come up with one unique things that they contributed to psychology. It could be anyone, and then give me one characteristic of that person. Okay, and I want you guys to come up with 5 psychologist name, and give me 1-2 characteristics of that psychology, what they have contributed, how were they important in any sense, their behavior or anything that is prominent about them. So 5 psychologists name, and I want you guys to be in a groups, and I'm going to divide you guys into a break room, and then let's take about 10-15 minutes. I want you guys to share with each other. You can search Google, you can look into your books or anything. So we're going to take 10-15 minutes, and then each group, I want you guys to select a spokesman or someone who's going to speak, and then I'm going to ask you guys to share with the class, and then we're going to move on to the next activity. Okay, questions before I break you guys up? So 5 psychologists, and you have to come up with one unique thing about them, what they have contributed, something funny, something ironic, something about the behavior, personality, anything that they are famous for. Okay. All right, so let me go ahead and stop the share. Let me go ahead and break you guys. This is my first time, so hopefully this. How many people are 14 participants? So let's go into groups 3. Okay. Did it work? Are you guys in groups right now? Let me see. Okay, now it should work. Go ahead and join your groups. Hey, Justin.
Hello.
So what we are doing right now, I assign people to groups, and what we are doing, we are coming up with 5 psychologists who contributed something to science.
Okay.
So I'm going to assign you randomly to one group. And let's see, group. I'm going to send you to number 3.
All right. Thank you.
Sure. So Victoria, I need you to join for group 3, please. You're not joined yet. Victoria Williams, I need you to join room 3. Okay, guys. Let's see. Okay. Okay. All right. So every group hopefully chose a person who's going to chess, and that person should go over the five, list that they, as a group, they come up with, and give us the prominent subject or the one that that person psychologist is famous for. And so okay, different groups have same thing. We're still gonna cover it. Okay, so let's go with room 1. Did you
Are you
guys?
guys able to hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so the first psychologist we discussed was Sigmund Freud. He was known for researching psychoanalysis and the importance of the unconscious mind in psychology. The second psychologist was Philip Zimbardo, and he was responsible for the Stanford Prison Experiment, and he expressed the power of social situations on people's behavior. The third one was Ivan Pavlov, and he was responsible for discovering classical conditioning and the importance that it has in learning. And also the fourth one was Carl Rogers, and he is famous for his discoveries in client-centered therapy. And the fifth one was Martin Seligman, and he looked into learned helplessness, and that's a concept that's utilized a lot in positive psychology.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Can we go with rule number 2?
Yeah, hey, so I'm the speaker for room number 2. My name is Spencer. Hi, nice to meet you guys. All right, so our 5, we start off with Elizabeth Loftus from UCI. Bit controversial, however, she was instrumental in determining that eyewitness testimony isn't always 100% accurate. Our next psychologist up is Pavlov, and we have classical conditioning, trained a dog to salivate by ringing a bell. Basically, that's just a simplified version of it. His research was pivotal for the field of psychology. We also have Freud, who has the id, ego, and superego. Basically, the id tries to find a pleasure and tries to avoid pain. Ego tries to stop the id with rationalized thought. Superego tries to persuade the id and the ego to rationalize by moral goals. Our fourth up is B.F. Skinner. He is known for his operant conditioning, and he utilized reinforcement techniques. And our fifth and final is Erikson, who has the 8 stages of social development from children to adulthood. And his greatest impact was that 8 stages of social development.
Perfect, awesome. And room number 3?
So the 5 psychologists we went with, the first one would be a pair called William Masters and Virginia Johnson. They are known in the field of psychology for doing tests on researching the sexual behaviors within human beings. The second psychologist we went with was Harry Harlow, who basically did had a wool like doll and a fuzzy doll, kind of. I'm not too certain if it was those dolls, but basically he tested it with monkeys, and we found out that through the interactions the monkeys had with both dolls, they actually preferred a more comforting and fuzzy cloth compared to a wool monkey that provided actual sustenance for them. And we found out that comfort theory was a thing and a possibility as a result of those research. Next one we have is Albert Bandura, who did the Bobo doll experience, and basically witnessing aggression actually led to children doing aggressive actions, which basically kind of played into the fact that we have observational learning as a result. The next psychologist we now have is Philip Zimbardo, who is mainly known for the Stanford Prison Experiment and how roles actually lead to people doing certain actions, and how we can apply this to real life, such as some people in World War II were Nazis but didn't actually agree with the things, but they just played the role of the party. And the last psychologist that our room picked was Stanley Milgram, who did the Stanley Milgram experiment and found out that people actually obey the actions of an authority. And basically, when told by a higher up figure, they would actually obey them despite it going against their morals.
All right, perfect, very nice. So the main purpose of this exercise is that for you guys to get familiar with different psychologists, because these are the psychologists down the road in different books, especially in this class and other classes that you are going to take, you are going to get familiar with this psychologist. So it's really important for you guys to know the different field, different things that they were famous for, the theories that they come up with. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so there's a one chat. So when you get to you'll be able to submit your responses, 13-digit number from Instagram on the lab website. Yes, definitely. And I'm gonna let you guys once we get there. Okay, so and then one thing that I want to point out, it's really it really helps you guys out since we are not in person. If you make in the room, divided you guys, and it helps out if you like to not to put any pressure, change number or contact information, just in case if you were confused, if you wanted to set up a study group or anything like that. So feel free if you guys are okay to share your contact information, make friends, to help each other out. It's just such suggestion. Okay, let's go to, let me share my slides one more time. All right. Okay, so this one we should be doing it as a group too, but I'm gonna pass. So I'm just gonna go over it myself. So the point of this exercise is that to come up with a descriptive term, scientists like 5, and then psychologists, so 5 terms for each of these. And we already talked about this. So scientists are really known in descriptive way of learning lab code, being socially awkward or not having a great social skills. They are engaged men, spend most of their lives in research facility or universities and things like that. So these are all stereotypes, but known as this warm, and usually are doing a research about or about health. And oops, I got a phone call. Warm, and they, you go therapy, you talk about your problems, and so these are the descriptive terms which are kind of stereotypes that are not entirely correct. Psychologists do all kinds of research. Psychologists have different fields. We have cognitive sciences, we have different things and different research areas. Is the same. So the research is determined by how and what you do and how you do conduct the research, and it's different fields. Okay, so and then this one is the hopefully you guys remember the exercise that was assigned for the ER book. I'm gonna go over it quickly together. So the exercise was the 15 guidelines discussed in the chapter that defines kind of what the research is all about. For each one, extend to read, you're already familiar with it before reading this chapter. So use a scale from 5, which means very, and 1, not at all here. So I'm gonna go over it by myself. So the guideline 1, researchers often examine a narrowly defined problem. So that some sort of makes sense. We are all trying to study some very specific, detailed thing, try to figure it out, and using the previous research that has been submitted. Guideline 2, researchers often conduct studies in an artificial setting. So most of the research has to be recreated in a lab, and that makes it really hard for the social science people, for cognitive, because we are interacting with people. It's not like chemistry that we are dealing with chemicals and numbers and things like that. In social sciences, it's hard to conduct research in a meaning that you are dealing with people. And once we come to people and you have people as subjects doing the research, it increases the rate of you getting a error or a false data, because it's it's kind of hard for them to understand the research, understand the point of research, do it honestly. And these are everything that affects your outcome. Number 3, researchers use less than perfect methods of observation. So it's, we do observation and different methods. And let's go with number 4. Researchers use less than perfect samples, and we have different sample sizes and for different researchers. Number 5, even a straightforward analysis of data can produce misleading results, and this is always the case. The analysis of the data, you can still produce a misleading results, and that makes it much more difficult and tricky. Number 6, even a single isolated flaw in a research method can lead to seriously misleading results, and that's one of the problem. A single, single thing that you miss in a research can really jeopardize the whole outcome of your research, and that's really, really important, so that you can conduct a research. So you have to re-examine time after time different parts of the research and try to basically disapprove your research, try to come up with ways and with ideas that you can prove that your theory or your research is wrong, because that's what other people are trying to do. So if you publish a paper, there are other studies that will be based on the research, and all they try to do is that to disprove your research, and not in a bad way, because we know in science, if you have a theory and you publish a paper and say, hey, this is this, and then if someone in any place in the world, they come in and they run experiment on your research, on your theory, and they can disapprove it, then you don't have a theory. That's not wrong. That's not right. So all the theories, everything that we have in science up to this day that we accept, we agree, are theories and experiments and researchers that are really proven. They cannot be rejected, and every time you run the experiment in different ways, you get the same results. And this is the good science that we are basing our society based on, right? Let's go with number 7. Researchers' reports often contain many details, which can be very important when evaluating a report. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Let's go with number 8. Many research articles provide precise definition of key terms to help guide measurements of associated concepts. So in many research papers, what the most important things are the graphs, are the data that they are provided, and less important about how they did it. So it's important what they did, how they did come up with the data, and what was the results. Number 9, many research reports lack information on matter that are potentially important for evaluating a research article. So this is pretty self-explanatory. So many research reports lack the information on the matters. To some extent, some research gets really technical, and you have to be in the same field to really understand it. So and it makes the job for the researchers kind of trickier to come up with ways to describe it that everyone can understand it, even those that are not in that certain field. Number 10, some published research is obviously flawed. There are unfortunately some published research that years later they run the experiment with a new device and new techniques and new technology that we come up to a conclusion that they were flawed and they were wrong. Number 11, many researchers acknowledge obvious flaws in their research. So what you want to do in the research, the way that you conduct the research, you want it to be falsifiable. And what I mean by falsifiable is that there's a way that other people can run the same experiment and can reject your premise. And this is one of the important things that will show up on your exam, that research should be falsifiable. And that's really one important aspect of, so that people can reject your there's a way that people can reject your research. They can tell or an experiment to reject your research. If your research is not falsifiable, that there's no way that they can conduct any research in different ways that disapprove your research, then you're not really doing a good research. No research report provides proof. And so again, these are not proofs, these are just studies. Number 13, other things being equal, research related to the theories more important than non-theoretical research. You need to have some sort of theories when you're conducting the research. 14, the rule, the quality of research articles is correlated with the quality of the journal the article is published. There are different journal association in scientific when it comes to scientific papers. So what we do is that we are researching, and once we get good results, that is publishable, that is positive, that it can help others, we are published. So now we have different journals. For mine, we have like JASA and other kinds, and there are they have a different prestige. So JASA is the best one. Once you get published in JASA, you really have a reputation, and your work has been really good. But there are other journals that are not that fancy. And an expert on the topic, you must become an expert at evaluating original reports. So, and that's what I'm doing. So in order to run my experiment, I have to really understand what the experiment is about. And the only way to do it is to go over the original ones and the before ones. So I'm reading papers from from 19 and everything that was published. The very beginning book that came out about distortion products and things like that, just to have understanding of what I'm going to do. And then after doing that, doing this rotation of previous students who has been working on this, and just reading what they've been up to and reevaluating. So it's really important. You can't just come up with idea. No matter how unique your idea is, you still need some sort of background for the research. Any questions? Questions, concern, comments? Are we all good? My connection is good. Okay. So another part of things that we're going to do today is the research series. So let me go ahead and share another screen. Oops. Okay. So this was a worksheet that was provided on the website. Okay. And we have different scenarios and what we want to do. And this is really important. So don't take this lightly, because you might get some questions on the test about this. So you might practice it right now with me. In each of the following description that I'm going to show you just in a second, you have to determine whether the study claims the frequency, association, or the causal. And these are everything that Dr. Loughran went through in the PowerPoint. So I'm going to go through it one more time just for safety. You should be familiar with them anyways, but I'm going to assume that you're not, and we're going to go over it together. And if you determine the claim of the passage you're going to read is a frequency studies, you have to be able to answer these questions: identify variable, identify the levels of each variable, determine if each variable is qualitative or categorical, the null and alternative hypothesis. If you are unfamiliar with these terms, don't worry, I'm going to cover it right now. And the same questions for associative studies. So you read the descriptions, And let me show you the descriptions right here. Okay, so let me go ahead and do the new share. Hopefully you guys will able to, do you guys see this, the document? Hopefully you do. Okay. So this is the actual paper that it's for you that was on the website. So then determine the frequencies, whether the studies is frequency studies or associative or causal. And then these are the 6 that we're going over together. Okay. So you read this passage and you come up whether this was causal or association studies or frequency, and then you try to come up with these answers. And do we all know where to find these documents on the website under lab? Yeah, okay. Let me know if you don't know where to find these documents. Please open them up. And so the website, it's a web page for this course. If you go to your Canvas dashboard, you select the psychology class, and if you go to module, if you open it up to the detailed schedule, if you scroll down, you should see for the lab, underneath the lab, after the PowerPoints and recorded lectures, you should be able to the links to download the links for the lab. There are 3, I believe. So let me, before I send you guys to your groups, let me go ahead and cover 3 types of Cs. Let me go ahead and share again. I have so many windows open on my laptop, it's crazy. Okay. And there's another question on the chat. Is this something we will be submitting today? No, this is something we're gonna go over because it's gonna appear on the test, I'm pretty sure. So we're gonna get some exercises in. And then, but there is something that I want you guys to submit. Okay. So you earn your credit for today. So let me go ahead and share. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see these slides. These are the slides from the lecture. Okay. Okay, let me, before I do this, let me go. You can find the documents. Just in case if someone can't find it, let me go ahead and share my screen again. All right, so I will cover this later in the class, but here is a dashboard for the Canvas. So mine is different than yours. So Psych 112M, click on it. It brings you up page, okay? And then this is on the first page, you have the weekly course navigation, and then you press start right here on the link start. And then here we have everything, textbook supplies. Oops, let me go ahead and move this right up here. Okay. So we press next. And these are the articles. This is the textbook information. Correspondence. These are the calc for the class chi-square and stuff that we're going to use later in class and also in the lab. And then you get to week 1 overview. And this is the schedule for 1. You can download the ER book right here for chapter 1 if you guys didn't have the chance to read it and do the exercise. And one go down, you have exercise you have to submit by Friday in different formats. And then this is the exercise due Friday, October 8th at 11 a.m. And these are the lecture PowerPoints. And here's the lab material. So research scenarios, if you click on it, it should open up this that we are gonna go through together. Hopefully this helps. Okay. So let me go ahead and share my screen again. Not that. Okay, so let me go ahead and cover some of the basic terminology so it makes your life easier. So we have different types of studies. We have a frequency, which is descriptive. We have association, which is relational, and we have causal. For the causal studies, we have independent and we have dependent variables. Okay, on causal studies, I'm causal. So we have independent and we have dependent variable. What is independent variable? So in the research that you're reading, independent variable is the variable that is being changed, being manipulated in order to measure something else. So the variable that is being changed or being played around with in order to get something else is the independent variable. And the dependent variable is the variable that we want to measure, okay? So let's say if you have anxiety and you go to a doctor and they put you on medication and they differ the dose up and down in order to measure your anxiety level to see if it's better or not. So the independent variable, it's going to be the medication dosage, and the dependent variable is going to be the amount of anxiety that you have. And then we have a different variable. We have levels, which is categorical, qualitative, or quantitative, and these are for a dependent variable. So we have levels, different category, qualitative or quantitative. These are dependent variables, something that you're trying to measure. And independent variable are manipulated or measured, and we play around with these variable in order to get something else. Okay, and these are in causal relationship. Okay, so and then we have frequency studies. The other name for the frequency studies is descriptive studies, and and these are mostly involves these are the results that you get when you're conducting a survey, right? These are kind of studies that you are getting the percentage, and if you were to conduct a survey. So for example, an example of studies of frequency or descriptive studies are about, for example, 1 in 54 children in US have been identified with ASD, which is autism syndrome disorder. Again, these are kind of conducted in a survey format, where teen smoking rate is 4.2%. Again, these are in a setting of what do you call it, survey setting. The last one, the association or the relational, these are mostly the correlation between two variables, right? So the correlation and causation, and we are studying the two variable. And so, for example, math disability tied up to bad number sense. So, you know, we are usually associating or relating two variables, and this is called association variable, right? Or, for example, psychology, for some, fall brings the seeds of depression. So again, we are studying between the two variables. And then let's jump to variables. So variables is usually something that varies, and we must have at least two values in a research to do any research. Two values, two levels. An example of that is that, you know, if we are conducting research in religion, we have all kind of this variable. We have Jewish, we have Muslim, and other. So we have more than two variables. Dosage of drugs, we have different dosage. So you don't want to have a variable that is constant or one, because there is nothing to compare it to. You always need something to compare in a research and understand the cause. And so in research, you always want two values. And the variable should be mutually exclusive and exhaustive. And what we mean by that, mutually exclusive mean levels do not overlap the values, and everything should be covered. So for example, if you roll a die, so we have 6 outcomes, we have separate mutually exclusive levels, or, you know, because we get different as it lands, we get different results, and the possible we covered all the values. Okay. And again, feel free to interrupt me whenever you had any questions. And then we have, so again, this talk about independent variable, something that is manipulated, our food, drug dosage, and something that is measured. Again, these are the stuff that Dr. Loughran covered in the lecture that is recorded. And then we have dependent, what is measured. For example, we have IQ, time running on the wheel, and so on and so forth. And so let's cover categorical 2. Typical is mostly a qualitative variable, a variable that is expressed in words rather than number. So it's mostly qualitative when it comes to categorical. And these are the example: religion, gender, hair color, major. And we have quantitative variable that expresses in meaningful numbers that makes sense for a research. Score on the self-esteem assessment, frequency of the drug, height, number for the level. And then last thing I want to cover, we have hypothesis. And a hypothesis, we have two different hypotheses. We have a null hypothesis that is prediction that there is no effect independent variable. So the null hypothesis means that there is no effect, there is no result. And then the alternative hypothesis, it rejects the null hypothesis and it says we have something to hang on. So we have some, so that alternative hypothesis. Okay. Again, these must be also mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. That means so we have to cover, and they have to be exclusive. We have to cover all the bases and all the outcomes, and they have to be separate. On hypothesis, we have one-tailed hypothesis, specifies in one direction. Two-tailed hypothesis does not specify any direction. Okay, yeah, that's it. I wanted to cover. That's all you need to know in order to do this exercise. Let me go ahead and stop the share right here. Yeah, it's on the manual, Kang. It's on the class. It's on the class website, 112M, not the lab, the actual class lecture. Okay. So let me actually, what are we gonna do? Let me go ahead and I'm gonna cover the first one. Okay, so you guys have some sense of what's going on, and then I want you guys to do the rest of them by yourself, and then we're gonna go over that class. We make sure that we know the answers. Go ahead and share. Okay. Okay. Give me 1 second. Okay. So let me go ahead and pause the share here. Can you guys still see the screen? See the worksheet? Yeah. Can you guys see the worksheet? Okay. Okay. So let me go ahead and one. Okay. So for number one, as a part of an exercise in a data analysis, my class surveyed a large number of people on their self-rated self-esteem. Each person was asked to assign a numerical value to their self-esteem with the range of 1 to 5, with 1 being labeled very low and 5 being labeled very high. The mean of self-esteem was 3.8 with the standard deviation of 1.2. Now we want to figure out which of these studies will be under. So in a setting that we are talking about, this is most likely that we're not comparing two variables, we are asking. So this is a survey kind of a research. So again, the survey kind of research is going to be the frequency study or the descriptive study. Okay, and then to answer the question, the next question, so we know it's descriptive, so now we have to answer the sub questions. Identify the variable. The variable that we are studying is the self-esteem, is a self-rated self-esteem that you're trying to measure. That's the variable, and determine what level it had or it might have had. So we are talking about the levels, the value of the variable, and then the value was 1 to 5, right? So it was to rate yourself from 1 to 5, and that's the level of the variable, right? So it's not categorical. We're not talking about hair color. We're not talking about gender. We're talking about self-esteem, and it's measured 1 to 5. It's numerical, so it's quantitative. So the value is 1 to 5. And then next question asks, determine whether it was a qualitative or categorical or quantitative. Again, it's quantitative because it's measured. And null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis for this study, people for the null hypothesis, I would say people rate their own self-esteem as an average or below average. So that's a null hypothesis. We're not going to have this high value that we want because it's self-reported, and it's whether it's average, they're going to rate themselves or below the average. And then the alternative hypothesis is that people rate their own self-esteem above average. So then the alternative hypothesis reject the premise of the null hypothesis. Okay. So these are the things that I want you to come up with. It says it on the description page. Do you have any questions? Did you get it? Okay. So what I want you guys to do, I'm going to divide you guys off. Let me stop share. So I want you guys to, I'm going to assign you to the same group, talk to each other, come up with. So for the room number 1, let me assign you. So for room number 1, there are 5 members. I want you guys to do, let's see. So I did number 1. I want you guys to do number 2. So number 2 and number 3, these are the short ones for room number 1. Number 2, I want you guys to do number 4 and number 5. That's number 4 and 5 for room number 2. And room number 3, I want you guys to do the last one. It's a big one. So I want you guys to do description number 6 for room number 3. Okay. So room number 1, do description 2 and 3. New room number 2, 4 and 5, and room number 3, do the 6th one. Okay. And ask me any question if you have. I'll be joining. Let's take about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 15 minutes. If you finish earlier, we can go over it earlier. You're almost done, I promise. The rooms. So Victoria Williams, I need you to join room number 3, please. Okay. Hello, hello. We are almost done. Today is the first session, so it's typically the first session is typically a little longer than other sessions. Okay. So we were just waiting for group 3.
Also, I had a quick question
Yeah.
about your comments earlier with grad school and research universities and everything. Let's say that I have and it's actually, you know, built up a little bit, but I don't have a publish. Would that actually also come into account or?
Yeah, actually anything in the research, the published is if you have a published paper, then it's you know, it's a golden key, but not everyone has it. Not even, you know, everyone that applies maybe just it's really hard to do it as an undergrad. So that was just something that I threw out there. But as long as you have some sort of research background, you should be really good in a really good condition. So as long as that they know that you are interested in doing research, you have a little professional background, you've done research, and then if you get a letter of recommendation from a professor that you worked with that specifies and that, you know, let's say this student worked with me over a year, research really emphasizes on your application, and it's really important that you stick with one research for a long period of time.
Thanks for that. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Okay, so let's go over the answers. Let me go ahead and share my screen. That helps. One second. Yeah, there's version 1. Okay, cool. Share. So I'm gonna pause this share so it doesn't move around too much. Okay, all right. So group 1 or room number 1, I need one person to read the description and come up with the answers.
I'll read number 2. A nutritionist was interested in the effects of various foods on life satisfaction. Based on the presence of casein linked to euphoria in dairy products, she examines the relationship between a country's mean self-rated life satisfaction, rated on a 0 to 10 scale, where 10 equals best, and the country's butter supply per capita for a large number of countries around the world. So for the start, our team decided to call it an association study because we saw that 2 variables being examined here were butter supply chain and the country's self-reported life satisfaction rating. And even so those are the variables. And we were thinking for the variable, it says qualitative, but I'm trying to think of it right now, and maybe it's actually quantitative because the 2 numbers here is the amount of butter that's in a country, which is, you know, is measured in a measure unit, and then life satisfaction, which is in a number from the 0 to 10 scale. So since those are both numbers, we think it's probably quantitative. So moving on from that, The levels,
Okay, perfect.
the levels for the variable would be life satisfaction 0 to 10, 10 being the highest. And
Mhm.
butter supply is, I don't know, like however you would measure butter, like in cubic volume or whatever, like meter cubed or maybe fluid ounces or whatever is there. So those are the two levels. And finally, for the hypotheses, for the null hypothesis, we were thinking it's an association study. So for null hypothesis, it would say that there is no significant correlation between life satisfaction and butter supply. Then the alternative hypothesis would be there is a significant correlation between life satisfaction and butter supply. It doesn't matter if it's positive or negative, but just the fact that they're related somehow would then make it true, like, oh, there's an association between these two variables. And yeah, that's it for the two.
Yeah, that was perfect. Good, very nice. So any questions on that? Everyone got it? So let me go over it one more time. So the study was association. It's a relational. The variable, it's a self-rated life satisfaction. The levels was the value of the variable that it's from 1 to 10 because they had to determine that. And then it asked whether the variable was qualitative or quantitative. It's quantitative because it's measured 1 to 10. What was the variable? It was the per capita butter consumption, and then determine what level it had or it might have had. The values from 0 to some large number. In this case was 10. Determine whether it was qualitative or quantitative, again, quantitative. And then the hypothesis was that the life satisfaction and per capita water consumption are not related, or higher butter, or countries with higher per capita water consumption have the lower life satisfaction. So this is the null hypothesis, that there's no relation between the two alternative variable. And then the alternative variable is that they are some sort of relation between the two. It rejects the null hypothesis. Okay, let's go with description number 3, still same group. I need one person to read the description and give us the answers that your group come up with.
I guess I'll do 3 too.
Okay.
A psychologist was interested in the effect of food deprivation on motor activity. She assigned each of 60 rats to one of 4 conditions differing in the length of time for which the animals were deprived of food: 0 hours, 8 hours, 16 hours, and 24 hours. She then measured the amount of time the animals spent in the activity wheel in their cages. So for this one, our team got causal study or experimental study. And first 2 words that jumped out that helped us figure that out was assigned and 4 conditions. Because when you assign and you're assigning different conditions, it means that you're controlling for a variable and you want to observe what happens as you go along and test it. So for those 2, that means the independent variable was the thing we were changing, which was the amount of time that they didn't have food, which was counted in hours. And so the dependent variable was after the amount of time that the animals spent in the activity wheel in their cages, which is just measuring overall motor activity. So for them, that would mean that each of these variables were quantitative. So these are numbers measured in hours. Yeah, both were hours, which is a unit of time. And levels, at least for this experiment, went from 0 to 24. So from no time all the way up to a day without food. So for null hypothesis, it would be came up with there will be no effect on motor activity by food deprivation. In other words, them going without food should not affect how much time they spend on the wheel. The alternative hypothesis is there will be an effect on the motor activity by how much food or how much time has passed without them having food. And if common sense holds, it'd probably be an adverse effect. Probably would not spend as much time on the wheel without food. But yeah.
Perfect. Great. That was all correct. Let's go with the next group for description number 4. One person read the passage and then come up with the answers that the group that you guys came up with.
For sure. All right. So description 4 is a physical education instructor was interested in understanding the changes in motor coordination with increasing age in young children. He studied 6 sets of children, 3 sets of boys and 3 of girls, grouped by ages between 5 and 10, and gave each child a test of motor coordination. So for this study, we got that it was a association study because we're associating the groups or ages of the children and their motor coordination test results. We identified the variables as, as the participant's sex, age, and their associative motor coordination test. We had the levels for the variable of sex was 2 levels, boys and girls. For ages, we have 6 levels, which is age 5 through 10. And for the final variable, it is unknown because we are not privy to the motor coordination test. The motor coordination test, along with the age of the participants, are qualitative, while the sex of the participants are categorical. We also kind of split a little bit with whether the variables were measured or manipulated. I thought that they were measured just because when we have participants' age and correlating it and associating it to the motor test itself, we're basically just measuring one thing to another and seeing if there's any association with it. However, I might be wrong, totally might be wrong, but let me know. For the null and alternative hypothesis, we got that for the null, there was no changes in regards to the motor coordination of the participants, regardless of age. And for the alternative, we got that there are changes in regards to the motor coordination in regards to the participants. So also, one of my other group mates might be filling in too. His name is Kong. So, yeah, just let me know whenever he wants to step in. For number 5.
Okay, sure. And then what was the, I got a question. What was the dependent variable that you guys come up with?
The dependent variable
for this one, what I think for number 4, I put that the independent variable would be the group, the ages of the children, and then the dependent variable, which is the measured variable, will be the motor coordination.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Very nice. Good job. You guys have a good handle. These are some sort of the questions that you might see on the test for the short answers questions. So you might get a passage and they're gonna ask you all these questions. So it's a good thing that we are doing good on this. And then let's go with the description 5.
All right. Well, before I do that, just to make sure, what would you say the answer to number 4 was in regards to the variables being measured or manipulated? Do you think they're measured or?
It's actually both. Okay. So it's manipulated and measured. But as long as you mention one, that they're very good, because some of them are manipulated and some of them are measured. So it's actually either or. Yeah. Okay.
All right, for sure. All right, so moving on to 5 then. A textbook manufacturer is interested in how schools use their first grade readers. To learn more, they train their sales representatives on how to judge A, whether the instruction was teacher-centered or child-centered, B, whether the children were divided by ability groups, and C, the degree that instruction emphasized phonics versus whole language techniques. Then each time a representative visited a school, they attempted to observe each first grade classroom. So for this one, we had this one as a frequency study. And our variables, we had 3 sets of variables. The variables were the judgment on A, whether the instruction was teacher-centered or child-centered, B, whether the children were divided by ability groups, and C, the degree that instruction emphasized phonics versus whole language techniques. And then for the levels of each, we had for A, we had 2 because it was the teacher-centered versus child-centered. For B, that one is unknown, I think, just because we're not able to, regard what the ability groups were in this frequency study. But in C, we had phonics versus whole language techniques. So we had 2, and then unknown for our sets of variables. And then besides that, we determined that each variable is categorical a variable because we had to put more of a name on it rather than a number. And yeah, so besides that, the null hypothesis would be that the instructor or the representative found that it was found that basically A, B, and C didn't have any effect on the textbook and first grade readers. And then for the alternative, that it would have an effect, all of these categories, A, B, and C, or one over the other, had an effect on the learning comprehension with the first grade readers.
Okay, good. One thing to point out for the variables, so you had it right. So I would go to identify the variables and determine what levels it had or it might have had. I would go first with the teaching organization of instructions. So whether a child versus teacher-centered, classroom organization, ability to grouped versus mixed, and then material, which is emphasized, phonics versus whole languages. So these are the 3 I would go with as far as I'm identifying the variable. And then these are all qualitative measured. And then you will write with the null and alternative hypothesis. Good job. Nice.
Can you explain that, by the way?
And then let's move on to.
Can you explain why the variables are qualitative instead of categorical? Because instead of like numerical, it's just like either it's like more name based than numerical based.
You're cutting up. Say it one more time. So your question is about categorical and qualitative?
Yeah, because you said it's qualitative, but I thought it was like more categorical since the variables are not numerical and it's more like by name. So that's why I was confused.
Yeah. So when I say qualitative, so another name for qualitative is categorical. So when you say it's not really that much difference. So when you say qualitative, you know that you're talking about categorical. The question is not asking you that specifically, whether it just want you guys to know there's a difference between categorical and the levels, which is quantitative. So when I go with qualitative, yeah, you're absolutely right. So I should have said categorical. That's right. Okay. Hopefully that answered your question. Let's go with description number 6 and last group.
Okay, so description number 6 is a developmental psychologist was interested in the amount of verbal behavior very young children displayed depending on who else was present. The study he did involved selecting children who were either between the ages 2, 3, or 4 years old These children were observed in a laboratory setting for a 30-minute period. Half of the children of each age were assigned to a condition in which an adult was present with the child during the session, and the other half of the children were assigned to a condition in which another young child was present during the session, with the child being observed. The psychologist measures the number, duration, and complexity of verbal utterances of each observed child. So we decided that this description was a causal study, and the variables we identified were the number, duration, complexity of the verbal behavior in these young children. And the levels of the variables we decided would be between the ideas of you either have an adult or a child, and whether or not the words were simple or complex, and depending on the age of the child. And because we listed it in the order on how the worksheet listed out the bullet points, we identified independent variables as the other person present during the session, and we described it as a manipulated independent variable. And the age of the child was also an independent variable because it's based on the age of the child between ages 2 through 4. And we also described it as manipulated because you can either observe a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old or 4-year-old, and it would change the dependent variable. The dependent variable we went with was the amount of verbal utterances and the verbal behavior of each observed child. And we said that the null hypothesis would be the person in the session does not affect verbal behavior, and the alternative hypothesis would state that the person in the session does affect the verbal behavior of the child.
Okay, perfect. Good. Perfect. So any questions, any concerning comments about these descriptions? All good? Okay, let me go ahead and stop the share. Perfect, guys. Thank you. Good job. So let me go ahead and share the PowerPoint. Okay. So this section of the lab, we are going to jump into the computer section. Usually in this section, we're going to do SPSS and stuff like that, but not this week. Before I do the implicit association test is the one that you are going to submit your result to me. So you're in credit for today. Before that, let me cover something else and we do this last. I want to go over the campus page, the exercise number 2, and then we're going to jump in here, and then we are going to be done for today. So stop sharing. Let me go ahead and share my Canvas page right here. Here we go. So on your Canvas, on the dashboard, you should see classes like this. Again, yours is going to be different. We have the web page for the lecture, Psych 112M. And then now you should be able to see for our lab. Our lab is the second one, so Psych 112 LM Lab 2. This is where you're going to submit your stuff that we are going through in the lab to earn credit. So once you click on that, you get everything that we are working here. Begin here, lab exercises 2, lab exercises 1. This is what we submit today, and this is what's we submit. And then so let me go back. And then Sophie 112 for the lecture. Let me go ahead and cover the basis so there's no confusion. So this is the first page. This is the information about Dr. Laughran, email address, office information, and Zoom link. And for our lab, we have the second lab. And then my email address is this one right here. So if you have any questions, concern, anything, you can send me an email. I'll try to respond as fast as I can. My office hours, if you have any questions or anything you're concerned about the test, about the lab, it's Friday from 1 to 3 p.m. And then here's the Zoom link. This is the Zoom link we are using for the lab, and I use the same thing for the office hours. And then if that Zoom link didn't work, you can use the meeting ID number right here. Okay. And then one thing I wanted to mention, you can come in to my lab. My lab is located at SSL 312. So at the SSL building, I'm on the 3rd floor, 312. You're welcome. I'll share this information on I'll find this, I'll put this information on the web page right here, so you can, so you don't have to remember. So you're welcome to, during the office hours, come in to the discussion. And usually what I have every year before the pandemic, I would have people, when we get close to the test day, you can come into office hours in person, and you can, usually there's a study group or something, you can sit around, and we can go over as a group. So you are welcome to come in anytime during those office hours. And and then one other thing, you can go under the web page, you can go under module to see what's going on. We have week 1 overview right here. There are 2 exercises that you have to submit. One of them is due October 1st, soon, and then the other one is due October 8th. And then you can see the week overview by clicking here. So you can see everything that we are covering. So these are the exercises that you have to submit for the lecture. You can download them here. And then you have right here, you have the PowerPoints for the lectures, different PowerPoints. So every day that she does the lecture PowerPoint, record the lecture for that day, it's going to be uploaded. You can download PowerPoints here. And then we get to the lab material for week 1. These are the worksheet that we went through, and we are going through the lesson right now. And then we have, the Zoom meetings that are recorded here. Okay, and these are the detailed schedule. Again, you can download this stuff right here. Okay, so I wanted to cover that before we get to the last thing. And then one other thing that I want to show you, if you go to the last exercise, and this is something that you have to do. You can do this on your own. I just want to show you, get you started. This is something that we are going to use for the later labs, so you have to sign up for it. For human subject tutorial for the exercise number 2, these are the steps that you have to follow. So let me open the exercise 2 right here. Let's go to, so exercise 2. So if you open the exercise 2, you should see this page. Hopefully it's clear on your end. You have to sign in, you have to log in into the city website. And then you follow these instructions here to take the tutorial. And then once you follow you have to get 100%, and you can submit that to the Canvas page right here. So you just have to do the link, press login, and then create an account. It's easy stuff. And then you click this link, and then you follow the steps, and then you click view the course, and then you take the tutorial and submit final results to the web page right here. Exercise 2, you submitted. So we earn your full credit. Okay. What we are going to do today as the last exercise, you are free to leave. You don't have to complete it right now. You can, but you have to submit it to the lab page by the end of today. Let me go ahead and stop the share and the share new screen. Okay, so what we're going to do, it's an implicit association test. And let's watch a quick video so we have an idea of what's going on here. So the background video, hopefully it opens it up. Let's share it one more time.
Is an inspired scientist, and behind every PBS program is a viewer like you. Get behind your PBS station.
American Frontier. I'm Alan Alda. We all like to think that we understand our own minds, that we carefully weigh the pros and cons when we make a decision, and that after we've made it, even if we have cause to regret it, we know why we decided the way we did. Oh, sure, we know some choices are more emotional than rational. But even then, we think we're conscious of all the conflicting arguments that run through our minds as we make a choice. Well, in this program, we'll find out how utterly deluded we are as we join in experiments revealing just how sneaky and underhanded our brains can be. I've always thought of myself as a feminist, so I'm pretty sure I know how I'll do in this test of my reaction to women in the workplace. I am ready to begin. Women, in fact, like Mahzarin Banaji, who's a professor here at Harvard University. The test is called the Implicit Association Test, and it begins simply enough. I have to pair the word in the center with one of the words above by pressing the E key with my left hand or the I key with my right. Well, it could be the other way. Mahzarin has told me to do this as fast as I can because it's the time I take to make the associations that's critical to the test. Now the target words have changed, but the task remains the same: to quickly decide whether the new words belong to the left or the right. But things are about to get trickier.
It's the same thing, except now any one of these four will show up, and when it's career or male, you'll press the left key. When it's family or female, you'll press the right key.
Career or male?
Yes.
So now the categories are described by two words, making it harder to decide where the new words belong. But since historically male and career have gone together, this is like reinforcing the stereotype.
This exactly.
The point of the test is to discover if lurking beneath my feminist convictions, I actually harbor a hidden bias against women in the workplace based on all the associations between man and career and women and family that bathed the culture I grew up in.
So now just
or male,
right.
Career or female. Okay, now you're testing me.
Yeah, we're testing.
The implicit association test is designed to ferret out any bias by seeing if it takes me fractionally longer to figure out where a word belongs when the pairing of the target words, in this case family and male together and career and female, is slightly more difficult for my brain to accept. Corporation, family, career, brother, management, you were done.
Slight. I could go. Here's a slight. This is very good. You are, so let's see, you're showing a slight automatic association between male and career, and only 12% of the same population that takes this test shows this bias. What you're seeing is that you're showing a much smaller bias than what many other people show. I'm up here. I make a strong association between male and career and female and family, even though that's not what I consciously express.
Even though that's not what you live.
And that's not what I live, but in my, I don't know, I'd be interested to know, maybe many years of working in feminist causes made you show this less.
So all those years of working in feminist causes didn't manage to totally eliminate my lingering association between female and family, and male and career. What's astonishing, though, is that Maz is far worse, and she's not only enjoying a very successful career, she designed the test. Another of its designers is Brian Nozick, who personally developed the test he's taking now, intended to reveal hidden racial prejudice. These are the same faces you've seen many, many times.
Many times, many times. In fact, I helped create the faces. Right. So,
The heart of this test is to see whether it's easier for Brian to match words or pictures to the pairing of African American with bad and European American with good than when the pairings are reversed, European Americans with bad and African Americans with good.
I can predict.
yeah. What do you think?
Moderate.
I'd
Moderate
say,
to strong. But,
I'll say moderate as well.
yeah.
Strong preference for white.
You're taking this for the umpteenth time, and you still haven't caught on to the fact that you're a little biased.
I think part of that is the insistence that my conscious beliefs still matter. It isn't that the fact that I keep showing these implicit biases mean that I'm a biased person, so I should just accept that and move on. It's that, no, I don't agree with those. I do have them, and I will admit to having those implicit biases, but I'm not going to let that rule what I would consciously want to have.
It really is remarkable that here I am in Cambridge, Massachusetts, perhaps the liberal capital of the country, with two academics who pride themselves on their enlightened attitudes, only to discover that they have latent within them biases they would fervently deny if their own test hadn't revealed them. But all may not be lost.
We've found in research and also in testing of myself that if I put myself in a situation where I think about positive black exemplars, I think about Michael Jordan and Colin Powell and people, Martin Luther King, who have had a very positive impact and who are also African American, I show much less bias immediately after thinking about those exemplars than if I hadn't thought about them before.
Even simple things like the presence of an African American experimenter reduces race bias. That the presence of a competent woman makes women's attitudes to math become more positive. Those kinds of studies sit, I think, in contradiction to the ways in which people like I thought about these. We thought they were learned over long periods of time, that they were entrenched, they were rigid, inflexible, and that does not appear to be the case. And I think that that's where the room for optimism is. So on the one hand, I would like people to take these data seriously when we look and when we can show the vast numbers of people who show the bias. I think we need to contend with that. On the other hand, what this work is showing is that it might be not that hard to shape environments that can change these, even automatic kinds of attitudes. Yeah.
You can find out if you harbor unconscious biases you would deny even to yourself by logging onto the Project Implicit website. There you'll find tests of attitudes towards such things as age and religion, as well as lighter fare like the Harry Potter movies versus the Lord of the Rings. Give it a try. You may be in for a shock.
Cool. So this is actually what we're going to do. Let me go ahead and stop the share. So let me go ahead and share the PowerPoint. Okay. So your task is that if you use this link right here, if you log on to this link, I need you to create an account here. So you press under student, you press student login, and then you're going to use the create an account because you don't have an account. Do not use the Google because that's going to lead to some other problems. So create an account here. Try to log in. It's going to ask you for your first name, last name. blah, blah, blah. You able to get to the website. You click here on the individual differences on this icon right here, okay? And it's called implicit association test, okay? And then it's gonna ask you for a class number. Our class number is 83. Write this down somewhere so you know. 837448. Research method. This is our class number. It's gonna ask you for that. Okay. And this is and take the test. It's gonna give you a code, a 13-digit number code, and then you go ahead and after you got that code, you can find the detailed instructions right here. Let me show you before I move to something else. You can find the detailed structure right here on the side as on the lab, under lab. Let me show you. It's pretty straightforward. So so hopefully you can see my Canvas page right here. So under lab material, implicit association test, race, right here, click on it. It's gonna open up this, and right here on getting started, you have the website right here, and it gives you a screenshot and step-by-step instructions. So you create an account again. Do not use the Google account, and then follow this instructions right here. At the end, you click on this implicit association test, take the test. Class ID is here that it's going to require. You go through all these instructions. These are, it sounds, but it's really easy. And then take the test, and then after you submit the test, it's going to give you a 13-digit code. And once you have that code, you come here, you go to our lab website that you now should be visible for you on the dashboard on the Canvas. So lab 2. Okay. So you click on right here, implicit association test. Okay. And then you submit your ID right here. Okay. So it's different. Yours is going to be different, but you submit you write your first last name, and then you type in your ID right here and you submit it. Okay. And then I'll give you guys till tonight, 11:59, to go ahead and submit those right up into the website. If there was any problem, anything, I'll be online. Send me an email, and I'll try to help you guys out. I'll be here. You guys are free. Thank you guys for being here. Sorry that it usually doesn't, our lab doesn't, it shouldn't take this long, but since today was the first session, you are leave. I'll be here till 5:50, like 4 more minutes. If you wanted to give it a try and to see if you run into any problems, but you are free to leave. I'll see you guys next Monday. Make sure to submit this code by end of today to earn credit for your attendance today. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.
I have a question about
Thank you.
The subject
Yes.
ID. You said it's until 11:59 tonight, but I see that it's at 6 p.m. and it's at 6 p.m. right now. So I just wanted to double check with that.
It's okay. I'll extend it. I'll extend the date. Are
Okay.
you on the lab Canvas page?
Yes.
Okay. I'll extend it. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
I'll give you guys till 11:59 p.m. today.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.